Stage 8 of Tour of Hainan is underway and into the closing stages indeed, down to the final 46 kilometres for the riders. Oscar Pujol has come up to help the hard-pressed Willier Trestina squad. There are bodies aplenty to try and chase down the group of 6 up front. It was 4 and it was joined by another 2 in the latter stages of this hectic stage. Another stage that's been run off at a pretty frenetic and fierce pace, and it is proving to be a very entertaining edition, isn't it, of the Tour of Hainan. Despite the fact that Jakub Mareczko seems to win the sprints for fun, it's far from a foregone conclusion through the day to the point where he gets there. This is the penultimate stage of the 12th edition of the Tour of Hainan. Safely ensconced in the, well, towards the front of the bunch indeed, is Jacopo Mosca, our new yellow jersey holder after his wonderful maiden professional success in yesterday's stage down to Wuxishan. A famous victory indeed in his career. I think it will go down in the annals of Tour of Hainan history as one of the more entertaining stages as well. Here's the breakaway group up front. It was 4, now it's 6, and they have welcomed the considerable impetus and the efforts coming in from Schelling, who's moved across from Vorarlberg, who's moved into the break, and Jai Hindley there, just scrolling through shot there as well, has made it across from the bunch on a couple of climbs ago. Here we're focusing, as you might expect, on the best Asian rider in this year's edition of Tour of Hainan. He is Liu Jianping from the Hengchang squad. He's sitting 7th overall. He's had an absolutely fabulous day yesterday. He's picked up some useful bonus seconds as well. 7th overall going into the stage, 18 seconds back from Jacopo Mosca, and those 3 bonus seconds he took at the first sprint of the day with 121 kilometers remaining in the stage. Well, they theoretically at least and provisionally have moved him up into 5th place overall. Should he survive through to the finish, and should any of the riders sitting just directly behind him on general classification fail to take any bonus seconds for finishing first 3 in the stage, well, then he'll move up into that 5th position. There are more bonus seconds on offer as well before the conclusion of this stage. Another bonus sprint coming up with 29.3 kilometers to go, and it's well, 44 and a bit kilometers to go, down to 1 minute and 5 seconds. And look at the way that there's so many riders and so many teams involved in the chase, and indeed Mosca's staying close to the action. He spent most of the week on the front of the bunch, racing along on behalf of the Willier Trestina team and on behalf of Jakub Mareczko. Now he finds himself in the relatively unfamiliar position of defending a lead. He hasn't been wearing that yellow jersey for long, has he? He's got some interesting tan lines there. Magnus Backstedt is alongside me once more to run the rule over the riders. Proud moment for Jacopo Mosca. He's a domestique in his first year of racing and now finds himself on the cusp of a famous win.
Yeah, well, he's had a great week, and certainly yesterday was a fantastic finish by Mosca. I thought he played that really well, and it just goes to show what you know, when you take that moment and really go for it, and what that can bring you. So made him win, and also into the yellow jersey. You know, it couldn't have been a much better day for him.
No, absolutely perfect up into the yellow jersey. Well, he went into the early break of the day and had to defend the honours really of the Willier Trestina squad. You sensed when Jakub Mareczko, who'd managed to survive over 3 of the 4 hills of the day, you sensed when he went back to his team car to collect bottles into the lower slopes of that final finishing climb, well, that he really didn't have a lot of confidence of getting over it with the lead group. That was the way it transpired. Jakub Mareczko was dispensed with, left to his own devices, such as it is, but he'd sent his best wishes with the team. He's now 13 minutes and 38 seconds in arrears, but perhaps looking towards the potential for a 6th victory today. It's certainly wouldn't rule it out.
Well, looking at the bunch as well, though, it's a very reduced bunch indeed, and I haven't actually spotted Mareczko yet, so I think this has come down to, it's been a lot harder raced than what we anticipated it to be, because we've had a couple of big climbs in the beginning of the stage, and then it's sort of settled down to be a bit flatter, and then pancake flat for the last number of kilometers into the finish here. But it doesn't seem like any of the real big name sprinters have actually managed to get themselves over those first initial climbs. It remains to be seen to who we got left in this bunch here.
Yeah, it is a small bunch, and it's a good point. It's a point well made, because you're right. We're not picking out the green jersey of the leader of the points competition. That's Jakub Mareczko. No sign of him in there. Not seeing Martin Lass in there as well. A string of second place finishes for the Delco Marseille Provence rider. Really needs to hope that he would make it across the climb, and Jakub Mareczko wouldn't, but that's not as it appears to be the case at the moment. So great opportunity really for a group of 6 riders, because it's not a huge group chasing behind.
It's not a huge group, but they're certainly working quite hard, and the time split is coming down all the time. So they've realised that there's a number of GC potentials up in this group here. You got Patrick Schelling there in Vorarlberg. He's started the day at 21 seconds down, same as Jay Hindley, who's also on 21 seconds down. Jian Peng Liu, he started the day at 18 seconds down, and Vasiliuk, he was at 21 seconds as well. So pretty much the majority of this group here, apart from Shepi and Tvetkov, they're in contention for the overall, so they can't afford to let these guys ride into the finish.
Yeah, it's another GC day here on the roads of Hainan. Down to the final 41.5 kilometers. 6 riders up front, controlling as best they can this lead of 1 minute and 5 seconds over the peloton behind. We say peloton, it is a much reduced group. Can't be more than about 25 riders, if even that, in that group behind. Sergei Tvetsov, it was a disappointing day for him yesterday, but he's a great opportunity to make amends. Jai Hindley has raced across, counterattacked out of that group on the couple of climbs ago, and managed to bridge the junction, bridge the gap. 2.5 minutes it was, and that was a very impressive effort. Schelling had done it a little bit earlier than that, and now it's up to 6 riders up front, just inside a minute, and plenty of shoulders being put to the wheel here, because the Willier Trestina squad have got 3 riders in here to support the interest of Jacopo Mosca, who's sitting about 5th rider, 6th rider in line at the moment. Mosca's not going to go up there. He's defending his position, but it's a very, very narrow and tenuous margin that he's got. And as you say, there are plenty of riders in there. Pujol riding through. Clearly they want to close this one down and go for the bonus seconds on the line. 10, 6 and 4 for the first 3 across the line, remember. An opportunity for another shake-up. It was billed as perhaps the second of the GC days, the second day where it really could decide, but in years past it hasn't really transpired in that way, and it's often been the case that whoever was first into Wusishan would end up winning the race. Well, that may turn out to be the case, but they're going to have to scrap for this one if Mosca's going to get his win.
Yeah, we still have one more intermediate sprint to come as well. So that comes in at 168 kilometers. So yeah, there's plenty to be raced for, and I think from Mosca's point of view, he would be quite happy right now if the likes of Tvetkov and Shepi decided to attack and go on their own, because at that point they could afford to just back off and let those guys actually race to the finish line and take stage honours and mop up a whole load of bonus seconds, because it is very, very tight up at the top. We're talking 3 seconds down to Prades and 8 seconds down to Kononenko and Demar. So you know, and even someone like Marco Zanotti is not actually that far off. He's only at 17 seconds. So this race is far from over yet with the amount of bonus seconds that we have available from intermediate sprints and finish lines.
Well, they'll do well to make it through to that bonus sprint, still in control of this situation, because they really are charging along at a rate of knots. And you know, in a way, it might actually suit Willier Trestina if this group up front took those bonus seconds, because none of those riders are that close or that close of a threat to Mosca at the moment. It might be useful if the 3, 2, and 1 went the way of this group.
I think that would be very much the idea from certainly from Willier Trestina to let these guys take the intermediate sprints. Although, you know, I think Liu is starting to sort of edge closer to the overall.
Yeah, he's 15 seconds back now.
Yeah, taking 3 seconds on the first intermediate sprint. So all of a sudden, then another 3 seconds, and he's right in the game again.
Yeah, he's currently sitting 7th overall going into today's stage. The 3 seconds he's already taken moves him up to a provisional 5th overall. Another 3 seconds wouldn't move him up a position, but does move him just that little bit closer. And it's dangerous stuff then, isn't it, for Mosca? But for all that, I suppose it would at least prevent the likes of Benjamin Prades from taking points. The characteristic of this stage, 4 climbs, but the first climb of the day coming, well, pretty much right from the start, was a first category ascent, and that served to absolutely obliterate the bunch. And it was down to a group of 30 riders up front, and plenty of attacks trying to get up the road from that group. And indeed, the main body of the race was left further behind. And it's been a very, very tough race. We've got a lot of strike throughs on the start list. If you run through the start list, you see lots of names with a line through them. They've been found themselves over the time limit, or just not in a position to start each day, or just not finishing for whatever reason. A couple of disqualifications as well. And it was a very interesting one yesterday that we can talk about. But Jacopo Mosca is safely in the wheels. His team said he was a little bit of a stealth fighter yesterday, that they knew that he's been absolutely flying and a really, really useful worker to defend the honours of Jakub Mareczko through the first number of days. Now we see Liu attacking. He's trying to get clear, and this is an interesting move. It's tactically interesting.
Yeah, it is a bit of an interesting one, but I think we are coming up towards that intermediate sprint, and I think Liu has just tried to sort of do a fast one and actually pull away just before the intermediate sprints, rather than waiting and relying on his sprint in his own right.
Well, you just trying to pull a fast one there. The blue jersey at the back here with those red shorts is the lead. He's the leader of the best Asian rider classification, in with a shouting chance of getting up into the top 3 positions at the end of the day. Certainly he's currently sitting in a provisional 5th overall. A great opportunity, and naturally he is the best placed rider in that group of riders up front. Vasiliuk, though, started the day in 10th position, the Colts cycling team rider, also in a blue jersey with the yellow flashing. Try and pick him out in the group of 6 up front. He's taken 1 bonus second. That's set to move him up into a share of 8th place overall. So riders benefiting from the intermediate sprints along the way. We often see that they don't play much of a role in the general classification. Today, though, slightly different.
Yeah, it is slightly different, but I think if we go back and look at yesterday's stage, the big losers from yesterday, I think, was Bardiani's CSF. They've come here with a whole bunch of guys that were supposedly going to climb and be GC riders. As we got the sprint, and Vasiliuk manages to pick that up ahead of Schelling, I think it was.
Yep, good call. It's Vasiliuk who's added another 3 seconds, or subtracted another 3 seconds, if we're absolutely correct about that. So he's taken a total of 4 seconds. So that should put him back to 18 seconds in arrears, and in with a shouting chance of doing something significant over the remaining kilometres. Schelling not really a factor at this moment. Well, as I say, Schelling sitting 21 seconds back. Large group of riders that chased down but didn't quite get on terms with our leading 3 riders over the line yesterday. And that large group of riders now sitting at 21 seconds in arrear. So any gain on the 21 seconds you started the day means that you're going to leap and spring up into the top 10. Isaway Sports Swiss Wellness squad numbers just 4 riders now, but in there and safely in there, Sam Crome, and he was quite emotional after his performance yesterday. Took 3 of the 4 climbs, 3rd over that first category ascent today, safely in that leading group, and I think he's pretty much rubber stamped his authority on that mountains competition. There are some 4th and 3rd category ascents tomorrow that have to be negotiated, but for Sam Crome, well, he looks very strong.
Yeah, he does look strong. He's ridden well all week, so I think he's got that fairly under control, to be fair. But you should never say never, and need to add up all the King of the Mountains points for today. But he certainly had a good lead coming into it.
There's the 20-year-old Martin Scheppi, the Swiss national team rider. Rode Tour de l'Avenir and finished 43rd overall. 9th in the mountains classification. So Scheppi is an emerging rider of some ability early on in his under. Down to the final 28 kilometres, we've got the final intermediate sprint out of the way. These 6 riders still clear, but it's a dwindling margin, fast dwindling margin. I wonder what it is now, and it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of impetus in it, and you can see that the peloton, such as it is, numbering not much more than 30 riders, if even that, is now almost on touching terms with the leaders up front.
Yeah, I think we're looking at around about 35 seconds or so, if we are to believe the information that we're getting through. Not quite sure on that ticker yet either. It has been a little bit sticky at points, but right now would be a good opportunity for the likes of Tvekov and Scheppi to have a go and try and get clear of that group of GC potential riders. You know, with the sort of small time gaps that we have so far, keeping those riders into a breakaway, the bunch is always going to chase very, very hard at that to try and neutralize that. So if you are sitting up here and you have quite a significant time loss on the general classification, then it's worth having a go and just see whether you can get clear. And at that point, I think you'll find that the teams that are currently riding will quite happily sit up and let that group go up the road.
A little bit of a tailwind for the riders, assist them in holding what they have at the moment. It's still showing at 42 seconds. That ticker can be a little bit sticky by times, so you don't always see the minor fluctuations in the gap that they retain. 191 is Patrick Schelling, the irrepressible young Swiss rider with Team Vorarlberg. Has taken some bonus seconds, could well be moving up into the top 10. Here is a kind of character. Tvetsov is the Jelly Belly powered by Maxis rider, based now in the United States of America, reinvented his career over there, and it's been a very productive year for him so far. Already a podium finisher in the tour of and in the inaugural Colorado Classic. His confirmation with Vasylyuk, Tvetsov and Schelling, the first 3 across the line at that second sprint. No points on offer for Liu. He's going to sit and remain at 15 seconds in arrears, the best placed rider in this group. Jai Hindley on the front, as I mentioned a little earlier, 3-year contract. Unusual for Neo Pros to be given a full 3-year deal, but really they believe in Jai Hindley's potential, and Team Sunweb, he believes in their potential as well as a team to really develop his career and give him the right springboard into the professional peloton.
I think it's a good thing to give a young rider that opportunity to settle into the World Tour and find his feet a bit, and just not stress about making making the results straight away, but can actually just get working and find his way around the World Tour peloton. So I think that's really nice to see a team actually offering that sort of amount of security for a young rider.
The Monkeytown squad, look for them. It's the best name, I think, in this race, and also a pretty nice jersey as well. They've got black and blue halved colours, and they've got plenty of riders gravitating towards the front. Now, going into today's stage, Marco Zanotti was sitting just 17 seconds back in 5th place overall. Climbed well yesterday, sprints well too. He's had a couple of top 10 finishes through the week. If Zanotti's in there, might be a little bit of a favourite for honours, but a little bit of activity up front. The gap down to 30 seconds, and Tvetsov perhaps a little bit concerned about this.
No, well, concerned. I think he's just realised the opportunity and realises what needs to be done here if he's to potentially win the stage today. And I think this is a very clever move. And like I said earlier, I would like to see Martin Sheppy at some point here try and bridge across to this, because the guys on GC, they will also realise that the bunch is bearing down on them, and if they keep on riding and keep on pushing, it's just an out-and-out drag race towards the finish, and they're not likely to be able to stay away if they continue, because we've seen the alarm bells go off in the bunch, and that's why we got 2 or 3 teams here putting the work in to start bringing this group back, because the likes of Hindley and Liu, Schelling and Vasilyk are dangerous for the overall.
Well, he's got a handy advantage, hasn't he? It's Sergei Tvetsov of the Jelly Belly powered by Maxis team, the squad from the United States of America. And he's up the road.
Yeah, if I was Schelling here, I would wait a bit, just sit back on the last wheel, and then once the sort of the work rate goes down again by the other riders who are sort of dangerous on GC, that's when I would make my move and try and bridge across to Tvetsov.
Down to the final 24 kilometres. Sergei Tvetsov is clear, but for how much longer? Back after these. Just over 21 kilometres remaining. They're starting to hoover up riders from the early breakaway, with Liu, the best Asian rider, the 7th placed rider going into today's stage, set to move up to 5th, but he's not going to stay clear of the peloton today. Still, they've got to close them down. The Bardiani CSF squad have put riders into the chase, with Zardini and Maestri working hard, trying to close down Sergei Tvetsov, who's just up the road here and just clear of this man, Patrick Schelling of Team Vorarlberg, trying to close the gap. It's a narrow advantage, and Schelling's well placed overall.
Yeah, he's well placed overall, but I think he's got a bit of work to do there, because Tvetsov is a pretty accomplished time trialer, and once he gets to settle into his rhythm, then I think he will be very difficult to actually catch.
Well, it's a brave effort by Schelling, and he's starting to look a little bit bigger, isn't he? So to suggest that he is closing across to Tvetsov, but this bunch behind is stretched thin. The Willier squad with the yellow jersey safely in the wheels. In 7th place, Jacobo Mosca in an excellent position. And how is his sprinting performance, I wonder? Throughout the week, of course, he's been making sure that Jakub Mareczko was in perfect position. Well, Mareczko's not involved in this one. Still more riders about to come back from that early break, as Shappy, and disappointment too for Jai Hindley. Such a brave effort from him to make it across the gap to that breakaway group, but well, he's still clear, still trying to close down Tvetsov and Patrick Schelling. Jai Hindley looking full of fight. The riders' numbers and jerseys caked with mud, indicating that the weather conditions have been unlike the weather that we've had throughout the week. They've been just a little bit of rain for them to deal with, and he's not quite there yet, is he? And it's a great pursuit going on here on the roads of Hainan.
Yeah, it certainly is. If we're looking at Tvetsov's individual time trial ability, I think there's only once this year that he's been outside of the top 10 in any time trial, and that was at the Amgen Tour of California. Tour de Gila was 4th, in Tour de Beauce was 5th, Cascade Cycling Classic 7th, and so on and so on. And yeah, just had a second place in the Taihu Lake prologue the other day, and yeah, clearly a very, very accomplished time trialist.
Well, Jai Hindley has recognised the futility of his efforts, and well, they weren't futile, were they? It was a brave, brave effort from the young Aussie, continuing to make a name for himself. He's still well to the fore, still an opportunity to contest at the back end of this stage. Inside 20 kilometres to go. Can he recover? There aren't too many riders in there that haven't had a tough day out there, because, well, there hasn't been that much shelter to benefit from, has there? Call squad, a couple of riders nestling in about 10th or 15th position. A couple of riders there for the Monkeytown squad, just sitting towards the front in those blue and black colours. Still can't quite get on terms with Tvetkov. Schelling dips his head. Not sure he's going to get there. I'm not sure who's going to win this stage. I wouldn't bet on it being one of either of these two riders, but if the bunch catches them from behind, I'm not sure that Schelling is going to have caught Tvetkov by the time it happens.
No, it's an interesting sort of tactical choice that Schelling is making here, and continuing with this pursuit, although he's not actually getting any closer to Tvetkov, really. I think it's probably worth just backing off here now and going back into the peloton, who clearly are very keen on keeping the pace high. So be interesting to see the coming in towards the finish here, because I haven't spotted any of our fast men, really. The only man, and one man that I think we're going to keep a real close eye on coming into the final kilometre or two, is the New Zealand champion Joe Cooper. Did a massive attack yesterday and really put everyone in trouble to keep up with him. Yeah,
superb effort from Joe Cooper, easy to pick out in that white jersey with the black ferns of New Zealand, New Zealand National Road Race champion. The pursuit up front being watched with interest by the pursuers behind, with the Bardiani CSF squad now trying to chase down Patrick Schelling and Sergei Tvetkov in front of him. Schelling is a pretty accomplished rider in this part of the world. He finished fourth overall in this event 12 months ago, fourth in the Tour of Hainan of 2016, and took the GC in the Tour de Loire a share in France as well in 2016. So some pretty strong results. Third overall in the Tour of Austria.
Yeah, and I also spent 3 years with Yum Cycling back in the day. Rode the last year, 2015, there when they were World Tour team. So he's had a spell up in the top. But here we go. Tvetkov has waited for.
An interesting play. Tvetkov may have got the shout from the team car.
Well, I think he's probably seen that he's not actually pulling clear and all, 100%, and he's decided to wait. Interesting to see, to hear the conversation as they're making the first change here now, because if I was Tvetkov, I wouldn't be too happy about that situation.
Well, Tvetkov recovers a little bit, but now we'll look for some assistance from Schelling, who in turn had just taken a few moments on the wheel of the Romanian rider. Tvetkov, who has raced at a pretty good level himself over the years. Well, he's heading off to United Healthcare. Interesting next year. Back up to pro-continental level. He was with the Androni Gioccatelli squad at pro-continental level for a couple of years in Italy, and then went back to the Jelly Belly powered by Max's squad that he'd been with in the US when his time in Italy came to an end. Back up to pro-continental level with the US United Healthcare squad for next year. In the meantime, he's still very much a Jelly Belly rider, and he's pushing on inside the final 10 miles, 16.2 kilometres. It's a narrow lead, and he's going to need as much help as he can possibly get from Schelling. Schelling well placed overall. I don't think they're holding anything back in the group behind, regardless of who's up here. It's just flat out racing. It's been the way of it all week. There's been nothing held back. They've been ahead of schedule, I think, on almost every single day. It's been, well, for a final race of the year, there aren't too many riders in there just cruising towards the beach, are there?
No, not. Well, they're very keen to get there very quickly.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it.
But no, it's certainly been very interesting racing and very fast racing all week, and no different today, really.
Yeah, split right from the get-go. up over the climbs. And one Monkey Island looms in the distance.
Is that the Monkey Town?
Well, yeah, maybe it's where they got their name. Monkey's obviously very important in this part of the world. Heading down into the final stages, into Ling Shui, across the Ling Shui River. And down to the Singing Beaches below this, believe it or not. Just over 15 kilometers remaining now on the penultimate stage of Tour of Hainan for 2017. We're racing down towards Ling Shui. 4 hours and just a bit under 40 minutes of tough racing action once more for the riders. Just a smidgen under 200 kilometers. They don't make it easy for the riders, do they? It's decent length stages and really testing the endurance of the riders, who many of whom, of course, have had a long season of racing in their legs at this moment, but it hasn't affected the tempo or the pace throughout, as the water crashes onto the tourist beaches, perhaps not as populated as they might be ordinarily at this time. The weather has been a little bit choice today. That's in some ways, I think, contributed to what's been a pretty hectic day of racing. Still 2 riders clear of the bunch from the 6 that has spent so much of the day clear. The bunch itself, not much more than 30 riders in composition at this moment. Stretched about as long as it's going to get, because it really has been a flat-out chase with the 2 Italian teams now on the front, trying to see can they close it down. The Bardiani CSF squad assisting Willier Trestina. Jacopo Mosca is excused chasing duties today. He's done so much of it this week, but now he's sitting in the wheels and trying to rest and trying to save as much as he can, because I think he needs to sprint today.
Well, he definitely is going to have to sprint, and be interesting to see if his team has got anything left to guide him in towards that sprint.
It's uncharted territory for him. As he said, he's not a prolific winner, not even as an amateur, and no. Certainly he's a very young professional. So to be going for the win from a sprint will be a new position for him.
Yeah, it probably will be a new position, because every team that he's ridden for, he's probably had a faster finisher in there that he's ended up working for. So it will be somewhat uncharted territory for him, and it can be quite difficult sprinting from this size of group as well, because you haven't got a sprinter, like all out and outright sprinters in the peloton, and with that, there usually tends to be an awful lot of attacks in the final couple of kilometers. Guys that are thinking, well, I'm not going to win the sprint, and with that, I'm just going to have a go instead, and you find yourself sort of jumping from wheel to wheel and trying to shut down potential attacks and breakaways.
Well, such impressive stuff from Willier Trestin to get as many riders as they have in here. They've got Luca Raggio helping out. Alex Turin is in there as well. Schelling continue to assist. 25 seconds, 13.9 kilometers to go. You would say it should be a formality normally for the bunch to close this one down, but the bunch is not big, is it?
No, and the bunch is not big. Luckily for the bunch, there are a couple of teams who are collaborating and working together to try and bring these guys back. But when you haven't got that outright sprinter, I think if Mareshko was in the Willier Trestina team and in this bunch, then it would be a completely different sort of mindset for the team as well. That they know that as long as they bring this back, we got pretty good odds on actually winning. Whereas right now they, of course, they still got a yellow jersey to protect. But in saying that, the time gaps aren't actually that big. If Kononenko, for instance, sitting on 8 seconds, ends up winning, and Mosca misses out, then all of a sudden they've lost a jersey.
Marco Marinesi sitting on the tail of the yellow jersey from the Bardiani CSF squad's a handy sprinter. He got up for third place finish a couple of days ago, so Marinesi can sprint. We'll watch for him at the back end. The man in the green and orange colours just sitting on the tail of the yellow jersey there. We're in Dossard number 1. Down to 18 seconds, it's coming down. Another little drag, which is costing these riders dear, and the camera foreshortening the distance between them, but well, it certainly is a shrinking gap that Sergei Dvetkov, the Romanian star, and his young Swiss cohort, Patrick Schelling. And at this point, I think the bunch behind must sense that they have control of the situation.
Yeah, when you can see the group ahead of you, then it's obviously easier to gauge the distance and gauge the catch rate, so you can kind of play around a little bit. And I think from a point of the yellow jerseys team here, Willia Tresina, they would do well to leave the catch until the final maybe 2 kilometers or so before they really start actually making that junction. The sprint today somewhat different in terms of from what we have seen. It's always been a complete straight drag strip pretty much every sprint, but today we got 2 left-hand 90-degree turns with between 3 and 2 kilometers, and then the road kind of weaves a lot, and we got a long right-hand turn from about 600-700 meters into the finish. So positioning today is going to be somewhat different, and you're going to have to, if you've got a team that can take charge of the lead out, then I think you find yourself in quite a good have quite a good opportunity of doing well in this sprint. They will be hugging that fence on the right hand side, so if you want to come around, not only do you have to go that much faster to actually overtake the rider, but you also got the outside line, which means you have to go quicker again. So any team that does the lead out will definitely have the upper hand in placing themselves for the sprint. And obviously, as a lead out man, you always swing out in the road and let your sprinter take the tightest line, which means that the guys who are challenging coming from behind, they're going to have to go even further around to go around the sprinter and around the lead-up man. So timing today is going to be everything for this finish.
Is there an etiquette to the riders coming back having done their lead-out? Is there?
Yes. Always swing into the traffic.
I mean, some riders just come, you know, like a stone, sink through a stone right through the middle of the bunch, and it does look pretty hectic.
Well, it is pretty hectic, but of course you're trying to make sure that you're doing it in a safe way, but you're always going to try and you always try to impede the other teams or the other sprinters, and doing so in a nice way, obviously. But there's no point in completely getting out of the way. If you can cause a little bit of havoc, and I'm very much emphasizing in a safe way, then that's what you tend to do as a leader, man.
Ilya Koshevoy goes to the front to try and finish this one off. Schelling goes to the front of the breakaway group of 2, but Dvetkov, I think, senses that, well, they're massing wide across the road. They're trying to delay the catch as much as possible. We're down at the final 8.2 kilometers now of this 8th stage of the Tour of Hainan, with Schelling on the front here and Dvetkov in the white of Jelly Belly, powered by Maxxis, give them their full title. He is... Well, it's been a slightly disappointing trip for him, really. I think by the standards that he's displayed on the roads of the United States this year, Dvetkov might have hoped for a little bit more in yesterday's stage. Not exactly sure what happened to him, but he ended up losing almost 8 minutes.
Yeah, he did also have quite a heavy get down on the first stage, which may have been playing with him, and you know, might have been struggling a bit from the sweets of that crash.
Yeah, the evidence is obvious there from the bit of netting on his left elbow. Time to get the Jelly Bellies in, because down to the final 8 kilometers, got to do it all again tomorrow. Time for a bunch selfie. That's an awkward one, to say the least. Time to dispense with the jettison the bottles. Koshevoy really is a powerhouse. He can charge along. Alex Turin, I think it actually might be on the front here. He's a powerhouse too. He's done hundreds and hundreds of kilometers on the front of the bunch throughout the day, throughout the week. So the Monkey Down squad trying to make sure that they surf the wheels here and put themselves into a perfect position. Blue and black colours sitting behind the leading team.
Semi-finals.
Inside 7k to go on stage 8 of the Tour of Hainan as Dvetkov and Schelling hang on clear of the bunch. But for how much longer? Surely they're going to be caught. Well, he's not going to give up without a fight. A little bit of a cross tailwind for the riders, which might in some ways assist these two out front.
Well, whether it assists them or not, I think looking at the work rate in the peloton, there's none of these two teams that are working, Villiers Tresina or Bardian and CSF, are going to want to let these guys get to the line ahead of the peloton. I think, yeah, certainly with Schelling in there, he's too dangerous for the general classification. So they've set their stalls out. They're going to make this catch, and it's just a question of when they catch these guys now, and the communication between the two teams are going to have to be pretty good to make sure that they don't catch them too early and open themselves up to all sorts of attacks. Because I'm thinking Joe Cooper from Isoway Sports, he's one of the guys that are likely to, with a kilometre and a half or so, have a proper go off the front.
And is that the best play for them, down to just a few riders? That's been his play against the likes of Marechko and Last. They're not in here, so will he think about going for the sprint, or is he likely to just try and go for the long one?
I think he's more likely to go for the long one. It seems to be his way of doing it, and well, it also comes down to, you have to make that call when you're in the bike race itself and see what are the conditions like, what's the wind like, is there an opportunity to make that attack? Because if a team or a couple of teams are up front and keeping the pace incredibly high, it's very difficult to make that attack and actually ride away from the bunch. You need for that split-second stall in the bunch for you to get the opportunity to punch, create that gap. Once you got the gap, then it becomes a drag race to the line, and if you got the legs, then it's quite a big possibility of pulling that move off.
Dvetkov is last man standing as Schelling gives up the ghost at the death, you might say. 5 kilometers remaining. Dvetkov is just about to be hoovered back up and retained by the bunch, and it's been a brave effort by all 6 riders clear of the peloton for much of the day. But now it's down to this bunch, a considerably slimmed down bunch in size and number from that began the day. Heading out of Wuxishon over 190 kilometers ago. Mosca still safely in there now, just sitting on the wheels. He's dropped back a little bit just to see who's coming up for the sprint.
I think he's keeping an eye on Kononenko, because in my eyes Kononenko is going to be the faster out of the lot. But I wouldn't take my eyes off Mark Demar either. We haven't spoken about him an awful lot today yet, but Mark Demar is certainly a man who is very sharp. And will take that opportunity if it arises to sort of catch someone half asleep, and he does have the power as well to be able to pull a move off. We saw yesterday he did a couple of attacks, and there was certainly some pretty big moves that he did, and if he gets the timing right, then he can certainly be a danger man. Delco Marseille as well, getting organised again. We've seen them do that really well all week, not necessarily to sort of pulling any wins off, but they've always looked well organised coming into any sprint, and they're certainly looking like they are today as well.
Yeah, they've had plenty of riders are capable of getting up, most particularly I think Emils Liepens, who's sitting 6th overall. He has got up for a couple of top 10 finishes through the week, while Martin Lass was producing that string of podium finishes. Yeah,
no, we also got Jerry Upon, who's been going really well, and is sitting up there on general classification as well, 21 seconds down. Upon a little bit of an sort of older statesman in this group, and is the man with the experience, so it'll be interesting to see who they go for, whether it's Liepens or Hupon to sprint.
Isoway Sports Swiss Wellness, we saw them gravitating and just poking their eyes out, their noses out into the wind on the right hand side of the bunch with Sam Crome there, and Joe Cooper we've mentioned. I think Robbie Hooker is there as well.
I think they will go for Liepins actually from Delco Marseille, because he's had two top 5 placings in the sprints before, and then obviously 5th place yesterday. So yeah, he's got three fifths.
So Delco Marseille Provence have missed out on the stage win so far this week, as we're down to the final 3 kilometres on this penultimate stage, 8th stage of the Tour of Hainan. It's left up to the Italian teams to lead it out, as we see the other teams starting to drag their riders up and into position. Jelly Belly, powered by Max, is trying to move up. I think it could be Jacob Rath trying to move into position, or has Michael Sheehan made it over the climbs? He already has a top 10 this week.
Cole's coming up as well, and watch out for Monkey Town with Zanotti, who is also quite a fast man in this kind of scenario.
Inside the final 3 kilometres, we've got a couple of left turns that the teams are going to try and want to control. Here comes Joe Cooper. It was suggested by Magnus that he would make an appearance at the back end of this stage, and so it is. Is he trying to springboard and spring his squad into position? I think they're looking after the interests of Robbie Hooker. Joe Cooper as well is sitting safely in 3rd place, just locking it out a little bit, riding shotgun for Hooker as the Isoway Sports Swiss Wellness squad just trying to lead it out. An unusual position for them.
Yeah, interesting to see that Joe Cooper is doing that rather than actually having a go himself. I think with the 2 riders they got, not necessarily the fastest finishes out of this lot, and I think they could have probably looked after themselves in the bunch.
Fabian Lienhardt moving up for Team Vorarlberg. They've managed top 10 finishes with Lienhardt already this week. So Lienhardt perhaps sensing that this is a great opportunity, a rare opportunity to take a stage win in the Tour of Hainan. It's been the Jakub Mareczko show for much of the week. It's been the William Tristina show, indeed, almost entirely during this week. The only other winner in this stage race so far, of course, Jan Aberasturi. Well, it surely will be going to someone else in today's stage. Who's it going to be? 1,600 metres remaining. It's a fabulous shot, isn't it, from the motorcycle, as we really get a sense of the pace that they can generate as the Joe Cooper goes to the front, and it's the Jelly Belly powered by Max's squad just in front of him, trying to set something up and get their rider Jacob Rath into position.
Moscow's finding himself in a sort of very lonely position, having to defend for himself and try and find his own position, which is not ideal for a man who's not necessarily a sprinter.
Well, you suggest that he might. He's gone over to he's taking the road less travelled on the right-hand side of the road and just trying to generate the power that will draw him clear of the peloton. Didn't quite work, and Joe Cooper's gone back into his box, albeit just for the moment, as we see the Team Colt squad have Alexander Prevar just trying to set the tempo and set the agenda as well for their riders. They've got a couple of options further behind. Coming up to the closing stages, Delco Marseille Provence with riders on the front. They've got just behind them Bardiani CSF. Colts also with their riders plenty in their team. Vorarlberg want to try and get involved in this one. Watch out for Jacobo Mosca in the yellow jersey.
Monkey Town coming up as well for Marcus Zanotti. They're really good position and pulling Mosca into the mix as well.
Maronesi is in position for Bardiani CSF. He's ready to go for it as Delco Marseille Provence are going to launch first on the long winding right hand run to the line. Who's going to get this one? It's a blanket finish, and it looks to me as if it's going to be a victory for the Monkey Town Continental team. They get the victory that they were hoping for all week. That is stunning stuff. Across the line to take the victory. The Monkey Town Continental squad have got the victory that they expected. Marco Zanotti sitting 5th overall, has taken a handy 10 seconds advantage. We picked him out as a potential victor, and Marco Zanotti has delivered. He's all smiles as he takes stage 8 into Leng Shui. It's Marco Zanotti. Pretty good week for the Italians in the Tour of Hainan. Celebrations all round for Monkey Town. Well, the Monkey Town Continental team got riders into this group aplenty, and Marco Zanotti has delivered in an emphatic fashion. And Well, plenty of teams and riders coming across to celebrate. They're clearly a popular figure in the bunch.
Definitely a popular man in the peloton, and yeah, great finish by him as well. He really well, had one man to lead him out and drop him off on the wheel of Delco Marseille, and by the time they open up the sprint, you see Delco Marseille Liepins opening up the sprint. Zanotti is there sitting still in third wheel, and then just manages in the last sort of 100 meters to come off the wheel, and he is very quick in these kind of scenarios. Just trying to see, I think the Coles rider there is Kononenko, but he ends up running fourth.
Yeah, Jacopo Mosca, the overall race leader, not getting up into any position where he's threatening the top three of the bonus seconds on offer.
No, but because it was mopped up by other riders, I think that ended up being quite a good outcome for Mosca anyway.
Relieved, delighted. His last victory of any significance back in 2015, took a stage of the Tour of Tahoe Lake on that occasion. And this is first year with this squad. Ex-Park Hotel Valkenburg for several years. 29-year-old Italian Marco Zanotti makes it 7 Italian victories from the 8 stages so far. Three different teams have tasted victory glory in this year's Tour of Hainan, so sharing it out amongst the nations, or indeed amongst the squads. But first victory for the Monkeytown Continental squad, and that is famous victory and such an important win. Zanotti signed to do a job, and he's certainly delivered in fine fashion. Marco Zanotti started the day 17 seconds back. He's going to have shaved 10 seconds off that to 7 seconds behind. Zanotti ahead of Marco Marinesi and Emils Liepins, confirmed in third place for Delco Marseille Provence, with Kononenko, Lienhard, Mosca in 6th place, Jacob Rath for Jelly Belly, Hooker and Pujol in the top 9. Zanotti gets the win. It's a 1-2 for Italy once more. The roads of Hainan.